This is my media presentation of that roadmap to responsibilities. So the first exit was emotional control. With this, what I had got from this chapter was that students who uh, go through challenging situations, the educators, with the educators, they think that they cannot do something or they lack the necessary skills are more willing to teach and coach students through challenging moments. And there are some educators out there that will assume that the students will not do something, but tend to think that they have those skills. They end up getting mad and frustrated because they don't know how to help them. And lastly is being consistent with the students of give them 5 conversation with the students, making sure you go through each of them through those challenging situations and hopefully help calm the situation and de-escalate the frustration from the student as well. One of the scenarios that I had dealt with is when I was working at a before and after school program. I would encounter a child. He would get really mean when things would get hard, especially when doing homework. He tended to lash out, and he would just often sit at different tables because he could not handle himself. The other supervisors that I worked with, she would end up punishing the child by taking away privileges, and that often exasperated the situation. He would even get more defiant and disruptive. Um, and I would come home, frustrated because I knew this child was crying out for help because something was going on that he just could not vocalize. He did maybe not understood what was going on. But sitting down with him and talking to him and seeing, what was going on and figuring out ways that would help him. So we worked with him and his mom, coming up with a better after-school plan with him, especially with help with his homework. Just, when he was getting frustrated as if he needed help, we would sit down and work with him just to see what the problem is, talking it through, going up with hands-on activities, or just either putting it away and getting something to read or draw just helped him calm down and refocus. This helped decrease the negativity, and he wasn't as disruptive with other children. The next one was clear expectations, and then with this is setting up clear foundations or rules. And with this, educators can use the foundations instead of sending students to the office. These foundations hopefully helps redirect students so they are aware of where they are heading if their behavior continues. And being able to have this clear foundation helps eliminates the I didn't know exit, so they see that and say, okay, I see the expectations, I know what is expected of me. In this scenario, again, working as a before and after school program, the supervisor that I worked with, she did not have great expectations. A lot of them were quite a few, and the fact is that when our teacher aides would come in, they had no knowledge of them. So the communication between her and me and our teacher aides were very lacked. So we were able to have the cohesive expectations. So we had a lot of I didn't know situations, and the children really did struggle with following directions, and would result in a disruptive situation because some of their teacher aides were really lax on what was expected of them, how to behave, and others were very strict and more of this is what we expect. So it constantly changed every day, which struggled with the students. The next one is consistency, and with this one is focusing on responsibility and having a consistent process. This allows students to be better equipped during those intense situations. Educators developing those 3 different levels of intensity. This helps in the discipline method, especially with younger children, being able to have like that red, blue, green mat when they're ready to talk. Those situations that will help the teacher as well, or just coming up with cards. That way they know the teacher is okay. They're not ready for me to approach them yet. When they're ready, then they can let me know by those. And being coaching one educator to another, this helps continues that consistency with the other educators, helps with that cohesive in the school, and with their give them 5 conversation. And also, consistency does not mean uniformity. Its components of Give 'em 5 are support, expectation, breakdown, benefit, and closure. And being able to provide a general outline, especially with the students, and as well with the other staff, helps with that cohesive. So a scenario, is like was previously stated, is that we did not have clear foundation, so this also tied into consistency exit, because the clear expectations from the supervisor to the teacher's aides were not able to implement consistency in the program, and we weren't able to encourage one another in working with children. I think if things were a little bit different with those consistency, and just being able to have a cohesive unit working with the students, I think that program would be a lot better function for them, and would help and maintain some sort of order when they're there, so that way they are not being very disruptive to other children. Benefits of changing behaviors. It's, remembering what it's like when you're a student. Keep in mind, if it was your student or your child or someone else that you cared about, and what do you want them to know? Also be able to open up sharing your wisdom and experience, offering benefits for the student, having short-term and long-term benefits for the student, and being able to connect the benefits to life skills or just life in general. The next scenarios is when working with children with after-school program, some children would really struggle with homework. I remember an incident. A child was saying they were struggling with math, and they were really hating math. They couldn't understand it. I also stink at math, so being able to relate to them, giving them some situations, relatable, like, but, I know you don't like math. I don't like math either, but I'm glad that I've learned it, because it does help in my everyday life, such as going to the store and buying something. Being able to count my money and have that available makes it relevant to them. And just making those short-term goals is like, okay, if you do, if we, you do good, you get some money, you get a sticker on your card, 5 stickers, you get a reward. Just making it more an incentive program, for them as well, just to kind of help them be more motivated to learn, or more motivated to want, change your mind about different subjects. The next one is providing leadership in challenging moments. Students could receive attention from classmates. They could receive attention from the other teachers. This would incentive the misbehavior, and that way the other teacher would always be constantly coming in to help, and you're not building that trust up with that student as you need to be. Students could be disrupted to the other classes, and they may miss out on instruction and be unprepared for the next lesson because they're behind. So when a student being disruptive, this takes a lot of issues in the classroom, because they're always looking at ways to get attention, and the student aside, taking the student aside and speaking to them, see what's going on, and remembering the Give 'em 5 conversations as well when you're speaking to them. But when you're talking to them, you get that sense of what's going on, and being able to say, okay, I'd like to talk with you after school or after class, see what's going on. It helps them be like, okay, this teacher is invested in me, wants to know what's going on. This could help with challenging situations if you work with them and come up with ways that would help them when they feel that they're becoming disruptive, that we can work, okay, remember we talked about this, let's figure out ways to change our direction with our behavior. And the responsibility, next one is that as a responsibility, and this is ability to respond well, offering a student a short break when they're mad, guiding students toward responsibility until the work is done. By Give 'em 5 conversations, students give the ability to solve the problems on their own. So, for instance, a student, when they're angry in class, they were able to understand what was being taught. The teacher allowed the student a short break to calm down, especially with younger kids, having those cards available, like the bread, they're not ready to talk. And then when they're getting ready, they can let that teacher know by those cards, allowing a certain amount of time for them to calm down. So the problem with the student was with communication. So teacher, utilize resources with the IEP, such as the speech therapist talking with their parents and letting you know they're struggling with communication, having the student visit that speech therapist on a weekly basis to help open up ways to communicate about their feelings. So when they would get mad, that student would be able to vocalize what was going on, so that way the teacher could devise ways to assist them and to figure out what works best when they're doing homework, and how can we assist a student with achieving those goals by themselves, but being able to help redirect them as well. And that is the end of my presentation, and I appreciate your time and hope you have a great night.